Coming up in this episode, I will share with you an embarrassingly long and overdue crime, mystery and thriller book haul. Perhaps on a not so surprising note, I have read some of these novels. As always, I will endeavour to be as spoiler-free as possible, so stay tuned. You're listening to the Book Nerd Podcast, a virtual book club for readers of mystery, thriller and suspense novels. Twice a month I will bring you a short discussion about what makes a great thriller novel, as well as latest reads over a cup of tea. And who am I? I'm your host, cozy mystery writer and thriller author, Amelia D. Hay. Hello book lovers. The crime, mystery and thriller books in this haul were purchased over the last 6 months of 2019. Yes, some of these books have been sitting in a pile on the floor in my office for 18 months. What can I say? I'm a chronic procrastinator. Way back in March, I planned on releasing this episode, but my husband started working from home and I struggled to figure out how to continue to work with my new workplace colleague. So this podcast went on hiatus. Well, I thought it would be a short hiatus, but it didn't work out like that, much like many other things in 2020. I ended up relaunching it at the start of this year. But back to the books. As per my previous book hauls, I separated these novels according to genre, just to make it a little easier for you. Before I introduce the books, if there's a change in subgenre within the book haul, I will let you know ahead of time. And now for a bit of mystery or thriller novel related news. On the 11th of December, The Hollywood Reporter finally shared the release date of Death on the Nile, along with a long list of other films. And its new release date in the United Kingdom is the 17th of September 2021. I'm absolutely devastated. I've been so excited to watch this film since I first saw the trailer on YouTube back in August. To be honest, the release date is disappointing because I wish they would release the film through a streaming service, because I'm happy to pay an extra £20 to see the film at home because I'm a fan of the genre. There's a part of me that realizes why they want to wait for a cinema release, because they're trying to encourage people to return to the cinema after the pandemic. Unfortunately, the pandemic is far from over. You get it. I'm annoyed and disappointed. I'll include a link to the article in the show notes in your favourite podcasting app and over on the corresponding blog post, just in case you want to check out all of the other release dates. Just so that you're aware, the next few books in this haul sit within the hard-boiled mystery subgenre. The first book in this haul is Immortal in Death by J.D. Robb. For those of you who are unfamiliar with this novel, this book is the third book in the In Death series, which features protagonist Eve Dallas. I read this novel between the 30th of October 2019 and the 6th of November 2019. One of the things I love about this series is it's fast-paced. When I cast my mind back to the period while I was reading Immortal in Death, I remember reaching the end of chapter 3 and there was a wedding dress fitting, an awkward love triangle, and a dead body. I know that's a bit spoilery. As Eve and Rourke's wedding fast approaches, Eve investigates the murder of her top fashion model. The stakes are amped up after her friend Mavis becomes tangled up in the crimes. Even though she is a police officer, I think this provides Eve with an extra layer of motivation to get to the truth behind who committed the crimes, so her friend doesn't end up going to jail for a crime she didn't commit. Up next is Rapture in Death by J.D. Robb, which is book 4 in the In Death series. I read this novel between the 6th of November 2019 and the 13th of November 2019. There are a few scenes in this book that I'm not comfortable with, and these scenes are of a sexual nature. It's not that I prefer my books to be clean, but it's more about the quality and how the scenes play out. Now is a great time to point out that this series is advertised as a sexy style of thriller, and Robb definitely delivers on that promise in all of the books. Actually, you probably could refer to it as romantic suspense, but at the same time, it's also quite hard-boiled. In the spirit of trying to remain spoiler-free, let's just say I now have a healthy distrust of virtual reality. purely because of this book. But in saying that, despite the issues I did have with this book, I still consider this series bingeable. Next is Ceremony in Death by J.D. Robb, which is book 5 in the In Death series. And you guessed it, I read this novel between the 2nd of June 2020 and the 9th of June 2020. The novel follows the investigation into the murders of victims who were linked to a sexual satanic cult. Due to the nature of the crimes, you get a sneak peek into the tragic events in Eve's past. You also see character growth on Eve's part and how she manages her own personal trauma triggers in her relationship with Rourke. This may not be a popular opinion, but I often find the relationship between Eve and Rourke unhealthy at times. I don't usually do this, but this book probably needs a trigger warning. Without sharing spoilers, there are hints of sexual abuse in this story. The next few books in this haul are novels that can be found within the action and adventure subgenre that do cross over into the mystery and thriller genres as well. The Romanov Ransom by Clive Cussler and Robin Bursell is the 9th book in the Fargo Adventure series. In this Fargo adventure, the story focuses on the discovery of a Russian fortune stolen by the Nazis during World War II. And that's what made me pick this novel up off the shelf. Now for a funny story. Way back in 2019, when you could travel, Roland and I were on vacation in Paris, and I purchased a smaller sized version of the English translation in a store called Fnac, utterly unaware that I had recently purchased a copy at home. Yes, that was a small fail on my part. The good news for you is I now have a giveaway for this podcast. To enter the giveaway, all you have to do is like the Instagram post or the Facebook post for this episode and share the episode with your friends. The giveaway ends on the 15th of March 2021. I'm also considering adding a few bonuses to this giveaway, so stay tuned for more details within the next few days. So these extra things will probably be fun podcast related merch, or I guess book nerdy type of merchandise like mugs, like a book bag or something, maybe a couple of other bonus books. I'll have to brainstorm and make an official announcement on social media to let you know. Book 5 is Fever by Dion Meyer. Technically, Fever by Dion Meyer is a dystopian thriller novel, but it still fits in the genre, so it's made it into this haul. It's a standalone. At the moment, there doesn't seem to be any hint of a series. For the sake of full transparency, this novel was a Christmas gift from my brother-in-law and his wife, and that was Christmas 2019. Yeah, Christmas 2019, not 2020. What intrigued me about this story was it's written in the same vein as true crime. It's fiction and not based on a true story. I can't wait to read this story, but my to-be-read list is out of control. Next in this haul is Blue Moon by Lee Child, and it's book 24 in the Jack Reacher series. I'm not sure how I feel about reading the rest of the books in the series now that they are being written by someone other than Lee Child, even if it's his brother who is an experienced thriller author. I'll leave a link to the article where I learned this information in the show notes in your favourite podcasting app and over on the blog post. What really drew me in with Blue Moon was the cover. It looked intriguing. I literally couldn't resist. And I didn't even read the blurb. And this is a pattern with me. There's a part of me that just can't resist a really nice cover. But here's a bit about the story for those of you who are curious. Basically, in the story, Reacher steps in and stops an elderly man from getting mugged while on a Greyhound bus. This one event unravels a mystery surrounding dirty money and dirty secrets. Up next in this haul are a few novels that sit within the crime fiction genre. Michael Connelly's The Poet is a crime and police procedural featuring a character who works for the Denver newspaper. Jack McAvoy investigates a series of police suicides who leave goodbye notes written from Edgar Allan Poe poems. Darker than my usual choice, nevertheless, The Poet still had me turning the pages and shedding the odd tear or three. On top of all of this, the subject matter was hard to take at times. Just another trigger warning, this story touches on the topic of pedophilia and there are scenes from this person's perspective. You get it, it's dark. And I wouldn't normally share a book like this, but because I've read it and I still liked the book. I thought it had such a great ending. That's why I'm sharing it. I wouldn't normally interview someone who had written a book like this on this podcast because I hadn't read it, and if I know going in, I'm less likely to read. Like, I was completely unaware that The Poet touched on this topic before I started reading it, so it was an accidental dark read. Despite that, I managed to read The Poet in 6 sittings over 30 days. The Poet by Michael Connelly is a great read, and I can't wait to read the next book in the trilogy. And yes, it is a part of a trilogy. I'm hoping it expands out to a series, but I think at the moment there's only 3 books out, and I haven't checked to see if there's a hint of a 4th or subsequent books. It's just when I was creating the script for this podcast, there was only 3. Book of the Dead is book 7 in the Agent Pendergrass series and the 3rd book in a mini-series featuring his brother Diogenes. Despite this, the book can still be enjoyed as a standalone because the authors drop hints about the previous novel's events. This one was an absolute bargain. I purchased the Book of the Dead for a measly £2 from my local W.H. Smith. The story is about a cursed Egyptian tomb unveiled in a New York gala for a second time. Spoiler alert, the original unveiling had disastrous results. From the onset, I was hooked upon reading the references to Egyptology, curses, museums, and a mysterious donation to fund the reopening of the tomb of Senef. And to be really honest, that mysterious donation to fund that should have been the first red flag for the museum, but they didn't see it that way. They're not as skeptical as I am. I'm hoping the rest of the series follows this similar theme because I am a bit of a Egyptology nerd. I will watch documentaries on ancient Egypt over and over again, even if I've seen them before. I just love it and I can't get enough information about it, which is really what drew me to this. On the cover of the book, it has the hieroglyphs and you can tell it's ancient Egypt related. Sleep No More is a collection of short stories by P.D. James. The collection contains 6 murderous tales with the dark motive of revenge. This is the second collection of short stories that I own by P.D. James. I purchased this one because I wanted to write collections of short stories, but I want to read a few by other authors before I start writing my own. Over the years, I've read a few short stories within the mystery genre by other indie authors. If you're interested, I'm happy to devote an entire episode to short stories and anthologies. Let me know by coming over to the blog post or over in the Facebook group, and let me know if you're interested in me devoting an entire episode to short stories and anthologies within the mystery and thriller genre. The next 2 novels in this haul are books that sit within the crime thriller genre. The Venetian Masquerade by Philip Gwyn Jones is book 3 in the Nathan Sutherland series set in contemporary Venice. I'm not gonna lie, this was an absolute impulse purchase. Once again, the covers sucked me into this series. As I was writing the script, I purchased the 4th book on waterstones.com along with another book called Thursday Murder Club. So when I was writing the script, I was like, oh, that's right. I should check to see if there's another one of these particular books out, these Venice books. Because I purchased the first one on a whim from the Waterstones store in Crouch End, back when we could roam the streets free without masks. And I saw it and I was like, ooh, I like Venice. So it fell magically into my cart. And ever since then, I've been impulse purchasing the other books in the series because I got the first one and I need the rest, right? This is the logic. Flawed logic, but it's still logic. And thanks to recent events, books like this are an excellent way to travel to a beautiful location without leaving your sofa. I've been to Venice, so I'm excited to get into this series, minus the mosquito issues I had during my trip with my husband. Actually, I think book 1 might be next on my to-be-read list. I mean, my to-be-read list is just 3 bookshelves that have 2 lines of books on each shelf, and my red shelf is... Oh no, I've started the second row on my red shelf. I'm not quite going to run out of space, but at the end of this year, I'm going to probably run out of space on that. Target Alex Cross by James Patterson is book 20 in the Alex Cross series. And I purchased this on sale at half price from W.H. Smith in St. Pancras. I originally purchased this novel believing that Alex Cross had become a target and had to figure out the who and why before he was murdered, but now that I've read the blurb, the title now seems a little deceptive or the book description is poorly written. I'm not sure how I feel about this. As a reader, I'm not a fan, and it's something that I try to stay away from as an author when I write my own book descriptions and I title books. I try to make sure that the book title makes sense in relation to what actually happens in the story. Like with my book Missing, things actually do go missing in the book, whether it's people, objects, and there's a bit of a mystery about it. And I named it so because I felt that particular word was reflective of its genre and content naturally. This particular book, I feel like I've fallen victim to great marketing because James Patterson has a long history with marketing and he knows what he's doing in that respect. So I do feel a bit ripped off, but yeah, I'm probably still going to read it though. And I did get the book half price, so I'm not really in a position to complain, am I? The next 2 books in this haul sit within the thriller genre, and I know that's a huge genre, but this is where I found them on Amazon when I was double checking whether I was getting these genres correct. Dark Sacred Night by Michael Connolly is the 21st novel in the Harry Bosch series that features a new detective, Renee Ballard. For some reason, this novel is in the legal thriller category on Amazon, which is a bit weird considering it's a police procedural. By the way, I'm making this assumption about the category based on the description. Here's a bit about the book courtesy of Amazon. Detective Renee Ballard has faced everything the LAPD's notorious dusky till dawn graveyard shift has thrown at her. But until tonight, she's never met Harry Bosch, an ex-homicide detective consumed by this case. Soon, she too will become obsessed with the murder of Daisy Clayton. Because Ballard and Bosch both know every murder tells a story. Daisy's case file reads like the first chapter in an untold tragedy that is still being written, one that could end Ballard herself if she cannot bring the truth to light. The First Lady is the second book co-authored by James Patterson and Brendan Dubois. Thanks to the super spoilery title, it's a political thriller. I purchased this novel wondering whether it's connected to The President is Missing, but I have to read it to find out. Here's a short snippet from the book description on Amazon. President Tucker is caught up in a media firestorm. The scandal of his affair has sent shockwaves through his re-election campaign and threatens to derail everything he has worked for. To win the vote, he needs the First Lady to stand by his side. Grace refuses to give in to her husband's demands. Escaping the city and her Secret Service agents, she is officially off the radar. From that description, I sort of thought, okay, she's on the run from her creepy husband. And I thought, great, let's see if she manages to escape him. I want to read that book now. The final book in this haul is actually sits in a category of its own, and it's a police procedural. Actually, I probably could have put Dark Sacred Night in this particular category as well, because technically that is a police procedural. But anyway, let's get into the book. Lies Sleeping by Ben Aronovich is the 7th book in the Rivers of London urban fantasy police procedural series. Even though it's technically an urban fantasy novel, the story focuses on solving a mystery. If you like mysteries set in the magical backstreets of London, then I highly recommend this series. I'm not going to lie, I've been addicted to this series since I turned up for the book signing with Ben Aronovich when I worked for Orion Publishing. But I've purchased books 4 through to 8 with my own money. It took me quite a long time, maybe 4 years, to start reading the series, but I'm glad I did. And this series has almost, I think it's been dubbed If Harry Potter Joined the Police Force. So it's definitely a detective story, but it's a detective solving crimes related to magical individuals. So that concludes this giant crime, mystery and thriller book haul. As always, I have an important question for you. Do you like it when I segment these book hauls via genre or category? Does it make it easier for you to listen along? Let me know by sharing your thoughts in the comments section over on the blog post or below the video over in the Facebook group. Make sure you enter the giveaway if you want to win my spare copy of the Romanov Ransom by Clive Cussler and Robin Bazell. Details on how to enter will be found in the show notes in your favourite podcasting app and on the blog post. Thank you for listening and happy reading, everybody. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Book Nerd Podcast. If you're new to this podcast or want to be notified about more episodes just like this, then click the subscribe button right now. You can find episode show notes and lots more information at ameliadhay.com/book-nerd. I'm your host, Amelia D. Hay, and I'll see you in 2 weeks' time for another episode. Happy reading, everybody.